Your fruit trees aren't producing like they should, and it's not the soil, it's not the weather, and it's not bad luck. The real problem is that most people completely skip the single most important month for pruning, and by the time spring arrives, it's already too late. January pruning isn't just about cutting branches, it's about redirecting energy, eliminating disease, and forcing your trees to produce 2 or 3 times more fruit than they would if left alone. Miss this narrow window, and you're essentially throwing away next summer's harvest. Welcome to the Green Vines, where we turn struggling fruit trees into heavy producers without expensive equipment or professional help. If you've ever been disappointed by a sparse harvest or watched your neighbor's trees overflow while yours barely produce, you're in the right place. Before we dive in, hit subscribe so you don't miss practical, seasonal tips that actually work, and tap the like button if you've ever wondered why your fruit trees underperform. Let's get into it. Tree 1. Apple trees. Why January pruning transforms apple production. Apple trees are one of the most common backyard fruit trees, yet they're also one of the most commonly neglected when it comes to winter pruning. Many people assume that because the tree produced apples last year, it will continue doing so without intervention. But apple trees don't work that way. Left unpruned, they develop dense, tangled canopies that block sunlight from reaching interior branches. This shading problem doesn't just reduce photosynthesis, it creates weak, spindly growth that produces small, poorly developed fruit. Worse, overcrowded branches trap moisture and create perfect conditions for fungal diseases like apple scab and powdery mildew, which can devastate your harvest before summer even arrives. January is the ideal pruning window because apple trees are fully dormant. Sap flow has stopped, leaves are gone, and the tree's structure is completely visible. This makes it easy to identify problem areas: crossing branches, dead wood, water sprouts shooting straight up, and branches growing inward toward the trunk. Each of these issues drains energy from productive wood and reduces the tree's ability to set fruit. When you prune in January, you're removing competition before the tree wakes up, which means every bit of energy in spring goes directly into flower buds and fruit development instead of being wasted on useless growth. How to prune apple trees for maximum fruit production. Start by removing any dead, diseased, or damaged wood. These branches are easy to spot. They're brittle, discolored, or covered in cankers and fungal growth. Cutting them out immediately improves air circulation and reduces disease pressure for the entire tree. Next, look for water sprouts, which are vigorous vertical shoots that grow from older branches or the trunk. These sprouts are vegetative growth, meaning they'll never produce fruit, and they steal nutrients from productive wood. Remove them completely at the base without leaving stubs. Once the obvious problems are gone, focus on opening up the canopy. Apple trees fruit best on wood that's 2 to 4 years old, so your goal is to thin out the canopy enough that sunlight reaches these productive branches. Remove any branches that cross or rub against each other, as these create wounds that invite disease. Also, remove branches growing inward toward the center of the tree. They block airflow and light, making the interior a dead zone. The ideal apple tree shape is an open vase or modified central leader, where the canopy is open in the middle and branches radiate outward at wide angles. Finally, cut back the tips of last year's growth by about 1/3. This forces the tree to produce lateral buds along the branch instead of putting all its energy into growing longer limbs. Lateral buds are where fruit develops, so this single cut can dramatically increase your apple yield. When January pruning is done correctly, apple trees respond by setting more flowers, developing larger fruit, and staying healthier throughout the growing season. This one investment of time in January pays off exponentially by summer. Tree 2. Peach trees. Why peach trees demand aggressive January pruning. Peach trees are some of the most rewarding fruit trees to grow, but they're also some of the most demanding when it comes to pruning. Unlike apples, which fruit on older wood, peaches produce fruit exclusively on 1-year-old wood, the branches that grew last summer. If you don't prune aggressively every January, the tree becomes overcrowded with old, unproductive wood, and fruit production drops sharply. Worse, peach trees are highly susceptible to diseases like peach leaf curl and bacterial spot, both of which thrive in dense, poorly ventilated canopies. Without proper pruning, you're not just losing fruit, you're inviting disease that can weaken or kill the tree. January is the perfect time to prune peach trees because they're dormant but haven't yet started forming flower buds. Pruning too early in fall can stimulate new growth that gets damaged by winter cold, and pruning too late in spring removes flower buds along with the wood. January hits the sweet spot where the tree is fully asleep, wounds heal quickly, and you can see exactly what needs to go. The goal is to remove 40 to 50% of last year's growth, which sounds extreme but is absolutely necessary for heavy peach production. This aggressive approach forces the tree to channel energy into fewer, stronger shoots that will bear larger, sweeter fruit. Begin by removing dead, diseased, or broken branches, just like with apples. Peach trees are particularly prone to dieback, so look carefully for branches with grayish, sunken bark or no live buds. Cut these back to healthy wood, making clean cuts just above an outward-facing bud. Next, remove any branches growing straight up or straight down. These are non-productive and waste energy. Peach trees should have an open center or vase shape, so focus on keeping the middle of the tree clear and allowing branches to spread outward. The most important step is thinning the 1-year-old shoots, which are the slim, reddish branches that grew last summer. These shoots will carry this year's peaches, so you need enough of them, but not too many. Space them evenly around the tree, about 6 to 8 inches apart, and remove the rest. This spacing ensures each shoot gets enough light and nutrients to develop full-sized fruit. If shoots are too close together, the tree sets more fruit than it can support, leading to small, hard peaches that never ripen properly. Also, shorten the remaining shoots by about 1/3 to 1/2. This forces lateral bud development and keeps the tree at a manageable height. Peach trees grow vigorously, and without annual heading cuts, they quickly become too tall to harvest or spray for pests. After pruning, your peach tree should look sparse and open, almost too open. Don't worry, by mid-spring it'll explode with new growth and flowers, and by summer it'll be loaded with large, juicy peaches. January pruning is the single most important task for any peach grower who wants a serious harvest. Tree 3. Pear trees. Why pear trees need strategic January pruning. Pear trees are often overlooked in winter pruning discussions because they seem less finicky than peaches or apples, but that assumption costs growers a huge amount of fruit every year. Pears are naturally upright growers, and without pruning, they develop narrow, vertical canopies with weak branch angles. These narrow angles are prone to breaking under fruit load, especially during storms or heavy winds. More importantly, upright growth produces mostly vegetative shoots instead of fruiting spurs, which means the tree puts energy into leaves and twigs rather than pears. January pruning corrects this imbalance and trains the tree into a productive, structurally sound form. Another issue with unpruned pear trees is fire blight, a devastating bacterial disease that spreads rapidly through succulent new growth. Dense, overcrowded canopies create the perfect environment for fire blight to take hold, and once it enters the tree, it can kill entire branches or even the whole tree in a single season. Pruning in January removes old infection sites and opens up the canopy, reducing humidity and improving airflow. This makes the tree far less hospitable to fire blight and other diseases, protecting your harvest before it even begins. Start by removing dead, diseased, or damaged wood, paying special attention to any branches with blackened, scorched-looking tips. These are signs of fire blight. Cut these branches back at least 12 inches below the visible damage, disinfecting your pruners between cuts to prevent spreading bacteria. Next, remove water sprouts and suckers, which are common on pear trees and contribute nothing to fruit production. These shoots grow fast, look vigorous, and seem healthy, but they're energy vampires that weaken the tree's overall productivity. Pear trees fruit on spurs, short, stubby branches that live for several years and produce flowers and fruit repeatedly. Your job is to protect these spurs while removing crowded or unproductive wood. Look for branches that cross or rub against each other and remove the weaker or more awkwardly positioned one.
Also, remove any branches growing inward or downward, as these block light and create dead zones in the canopy. The ideal pear tree shape is a pyramidal or modified central leader, where the canopy is open in the middle and branches radiate outward at wide angles. Finally, cut back the tips of last year's growth by about 1/3. This forces the tree to produce lateral buds along the branch instead of putting all its energy into growing longer limbs. Lateral buds are where fruit develops, so this single cut can dramatically increase your apple yield. When January pruning is done correctly, apple trees respond by setting more flowers, developing larger fruit, and staying healthier throughout the growing season. This one investment of time in January pays off exponentially by summer.
Tree 4. Cherry trees. Why cherry trees struggle without January pruning. Cherry trees, both sweet and sour varieties, are beautiful, productive, and surprisingly easy to grow, but only if you prune them properly in January. Left unpruned, cherry trees develop dense, tangled canopies that trap moisture and block sunlight, creating ideal conditions for fungal diseases like brown rot and leaf spot. These diseases don't just damage fruit, they weaken the entire tree, reducing yields year after year. Worse, unpruned cherry trees grow tall and leggy, making it nearly impossible to harvest fruit without a ladder, and leaving much of the crop out of reach for birds and pests to devour. January is the best pruning window because cherry trees are fully dormant and pruning wounds heal quickly in cold weather. Cherries are also prone to gummosis, a condition where sap oozes from cuts or wounds, and pruning in January minimizes this risk. The goal is to create an open, balanced canopy that allows light to reach all branches while keeping the tree at a height you can manage. This not only improves fruit size and quality, but also makes pest and disease management far easier during the growing season. How to prune cherry trees for abundant, accessible fruit. Begin by removing dead, diseased, or broken branches. Cherry trees are susceptible to winter damage, so look for splits, cracks, or branches with peeling bark. Cut these back to healthy wood, making clean, angled cuts that shed water. Next, remove water sprouts and suckers, which are extremely common on cherry trees and grow aggressively from the trunk or main branches. These shoots never produce fruit and steal nutrients from productive wood, so remove them completely at the base. Sweet cherry trees tend to grow very tall, so focus on controlling height by cutting back the central leader or tallest branches. This forces the tree to put energy into lateral branches instead of vertical growth, which keeps fruit within reach and improves overall structure. For sour cherry trees, which are naturally more compact, focus on thinning rather than heading back. Remove crowded branches to open up the canopy, allowing light to penetrate and air to circulate freely. Pay special attention to branches that cross or rub together. These friction points create wounds that invite disease and weaken the tree. Remove the less desirable branch, keeping the one that's better positioned or more productive. Also remove any branches growing inward toward the center of the tree. Cherry trees fruit best with an open center or vase shape, where the middle is clear and branches spread outward. This structure maximizes light exposure and minimizes disease pressure. Finally, thin out older branches that have stopped producing. Cherry trees fruit best on 2 to 4-year-old wood, so branches older than 5 or 6 years become less productive and should be removed to make room for younger, more vigorous growth. When cherry trees are pruned correctly in January, they respond with heavy flower set, large, sweet fruit, and a manageable canopy that makes harvesting a pleasure instead of a chore. This one task can easily double or triple your cherry harvest compared to an unpruned tree. Tree 5. Plum trees. Why plum trees need careful January attention. Plum trees are incredibly productive when managed properly, but they're also prone to overcrowding and disease if left unpruned. Plums fruit on short spurs and on 1-year-old wood, depending on the variety. And without regular pruning, the canopy becomes so dense that interior branches stop receiving light. This shading problem reduces fruit set dramatically and leads to small, poorly colored plums that never reach their full sweetness. Worse, plum trees are highly susceptible to fungal diseases like black knot and brown rot, both of which spread rapidly in humid, crowded canopies. January pruning is your first line of defense against these problems. Pruning in January, while the tree is dormant, allows you to see the tree's structure clearly and make strategic cuts without damaging flower buds. Plums bloom early, so pruning too late in winter or early spring can remove a significant portion of your potential harvest. January is the perfect balance. The tree is asleep, wounds heal quickly, and you can remove problematic wood before diseases become active. The goal is to create an open, balanced canopy that allows light to reach all branches while keeping the tree at a height you can manage. This not only improves fruit size and quality, but also makes pest and disease management far easier during the growing season. How to prune plum trees for maximum productivity. Start with the basics. Remove dead, diseased, or damaged wood. Plum trees are prone to black knot, a fungal disease that creates hard, black swellings on branches. If you see these, cut the affected branch at least 6 inches below the swelling and burn or dispose of the wood, never compost it. Next, remove water sprouts and suckers which grow aggressively on plums and contribute nothing to fruit production. These shoots grow straight up or from the base and should be removed completely. Plum trees tend to overproduce fruiting spurs, which sounds like a good thing, but actually creates problems. Too many spurs mean too much fruit, and the tree can't support it all. The result is small, hard plums that never ripen properly and branches that break under the weight. Thin out some of the older, less productive spurs to reduce fruit load and channel energy into fewer, larger plums. This might feel counterintuitive, but it's essential for quality over quantity. Also, focus on opening up the canopy by removing crowded or crossing branches. Plums fruit best with a vase or open center shape where the middle is clear and branches spread outward. This structure maximizes light exposure and minimizes disease pressure. Remove any branches growing inward or downward, as these block airflow and create humid pockets where fungal diseases thrive. Finally, head back long, whippy branches by about a third. This forces lateral bud development and keeps the tree compact and manageable. Plum trees grow vigorously, and without annual heading cuts, they quickly become too tall and sprawling to manage effectively. When plum trees are pruned correctly in January, they respond with heavy flower set, large, sweet fruit, and a manageable canopy that makes harvesting a pleasure instead of a chore. This one task can easily double or triple your cherry harvest compared to an unpruned tree.
Tree 6. Apricot trees. Why apricot trees fail without strategic pruning. Apricot trees are among the earliest bloomers and the most rewarding to grow when managed properly, but they're also some of the most temperamental when it comes to pruning. Apricots fruit on short spurs and on one-year-old wood, and without annual pruning, the tree becomes overcrowded, shaded, and unproductive. Worse, apricots are extremely prone to diseases like bacterial canker and Eutypa dieback, both of which enter through pruning wounds and can kill entire branches or trees. January pruning is critical because the tree is dormant, diseases are inactive, and wounds heal quickly in cold weather. Miss this window, and you're gambling with both your harvest and the tree's long-term health. Unpruned apricot trees also develop weak, narrow branch angles that break easily under fruit load. Apricots are heavy fruits, and a single branch can carry dozens of them. If the branch angle is too narrow or the wood is overcrowded, breakage is almost guaranteed, especially during summer storms. January pruning corrects these structural problems before they cause damage, creating a strong, open framework that can support a heavy crop without stress. How to prune apricot trees for strength and abundance. Begin by removing dead, diseased, or damaged wood, paying close attention to any branches with sunken, discolored bark or gummy ooze. These are signs of bacterial canker, and the affected wood must be cut back to healthy tissue.
Disinfect your pruners between cuts with rubbing alcohol or a bleach solution to prevent spreading the bacteria. Next, remove water sprouts and suckers, which grow aggressively on apricots and drain energy from productive wood. Apricot trees fruit best with an open center or vase shape, so focus on removing branches that grow inward or cross each other. The goal is to create a canopy where every branch receives direct sunlight and air circulates freely. This not only improves fruit size and quality, but also dramatically reduces disease pressure. Remove any branches with narrow crotch angles. These are weak points that will fail under fruit load. Ideally, branches should angle outward at 45 to 60 degrees from the trunk. Thin out older fruiting spurs that have become congested or unproductive. Apricots produce heavily on spurs, but over time, these spurs become crowded and less efficient. Removing some of them forces the tree to produce fresh, vigorous spurs that will bear larger, sweeter fruit. Also, head back long, overly vigorous shoots by 1/3 to 1/2. This redirects energy into lateral branching and spur development rather than vegetative growth. Finally, keep the tree at a manageable height by cutting back the central leader or tallest branches. Apricots grow quickly and can become too tall to spray, thin, or harvest effectively. Keeping them compact makes management easier and ensures that every piece of fruit is accessible. When apricot trees are pruned correctly in January, they reward you with explosive blooms, heavy fruit set, and apricots that are large, juicy, and intensely flavorful. This one pruning session can mean the difference between a handful of small fruit and bushels of premium apricots. Tree 7. Fig trees. Why fig trees need January pruning to maximize harvests. Fig trees are incredibly resilient and can produce fruit even with minimal care, but that doesn't mean they should be ignored in winter. Unpruned fig trees become massive, sprawling giants that produce leaves and wood instead of figs. Worse, in colder climates, fig trees often experience winter dieback, where branch tips freeze and die back. If this dead wood isn't removed in January, it becomes a breeding ground for pests and diseases, weakening the tree and reducing yields. January pruning removes this dead wood, stimulates new growth, and focuses the tree's energy on fruit production rather than recovery. Figs produce fruit on new wood, the current season's growth, and sometimes on older wood, depending on the variety. Pruning in January encourages vigorous new growth that will bear figs by summer, and it also removes unproductive wood that's just taking up space. The goal is to keep the tree compact, manageable, and focused on producing as many figs as possible in the limited growing season. How to prune fig trees for heavy, reliable yields. Start by removing all dead, damaged, or frozen wood. Fig trees are sensitive to cold, so look for blackened, shriveled branch tips and cut them back to healthy, green wood. Make clean cuts just above a bud or lateral branch. Next, remove any suckers growing from the base or roots. Figs are notorious for sending up shoots, and these steal energy from the main tree. Cut these flush with the ground or root. Thin out crowded or crossing branches to open up the canopy. Figs need good air circulation to prevent fungal diseases and to allow sunlight to reach the interior branches. Remove branches that grow inward or downward, as these create shaded, unproductive zones. The ideal fig tree has an open, vase-like shape with well-spaced branches radiating outward. Finally, head back long, leggy branches by 1/3 to 1/2. This forces the tree to produce lateral shoots, which are where figs will form. It also keeps the tree at a height where you can easily harvest fruit without ladders or long poles. When fig trees are pruned correctly in January, they respond with vigorous growth, heavy fruit set, and figs that are large, sweet, and perfectly ripe. And there you have it, 7 fruit trees you absolutely must prune in January if you want to triple your harvest next summer. From apples and peaches to pears, cherries, plums, apricots, and figs, each tree responds dramatically to proper winter pruning. Remove the dead wood, Open up the canopy and redirect energy into fruit production, and you'll see results that speak for themselves. Which tree are you pruning first? Drop a comment below and let me know. If you want more seasonal, practical tips that actually work, hit that subscribe button and join the Green Vines community. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if it gave you a clear action plan for January. Remember, January pruning isn't optional. It's the foundation of a massive harvest. Get out there, make those cuts, and watch your trees explode with fruit next summer.